Good morning. This is Irene with Coffee with Caregivers, and I know we're starting this out a little bit different this time because we had a big old oops when we're preparing this episode. For some reason, my computer got really wonky, and the sound is terrible on my part. But our guest, Maurita McCorkle from North Carolina, has some really important information for you. So I hope you'll bear with the sound quality on my part as you view this episode, and give your full attention to Maurita because she's the guest and she's got the most to say. So enjoy.
There you go. Hi, Maurita.
Hey there. I'm good, Irene. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been a little crazy here. Yard man's out there doing some yard work, and so that's why we're going to interfere a little bit with what we just heard. But that's the way life goes, and we just have to keep working around it, don't we?
It sure does.
You know that better than most. And so you find a way around whatever it is.
That's right.
So what I really love for you to do is just introduce yourself, and let's tell our audience and those people who will watch this, later on our website, a little about who you are and what is important for you that you want the audience to know.
Okay. Well, my name's Maurita McCorkle, and I am located in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. I've been a foster parent for 18 plus years. I've had over 80 kids in my home, and I've loved every minute of it, although there's been many times where I've wanted to give up, but it's been worth every minute, every effort, everything that I've done. Currently, I house kids that are aging out of foster care and help them to get on their feet. Through the process of being a foster parent, in the beginning, I did what everybody wants to do, and that's the young kids. I was single. I was actually single foster parent for 17 of the 18 years that I've been a foster parent. I've only been married a couple of years now. And so singles, it's possible to be a foster parent. Don't give up on that. That's one of my messages. That's very important. And the other is that, the kids have come in many facets. I've had kids 5 months old up to 28 years old, and all of them are in need of a parent, whether they believe it or understand it or not. And the kids I do now are probably the most challenging out of all of them because they think they know it all. They think that they're 18 to 21 and they have the answer for everything. So sometimes it's just important to sit back and let them make their decisions and walk through it and be there to love them unconditionally. So it's my heart, it's my passion. Foster parenting is my passion. I have the state organization here in North Carolina, and I'm very proud of what we're doing there and continue to pursue and do whatever I can for the foster care community.
Yeah, and I've really appreciated and enjoyed kind of watching you over the last several years through various contacts and how you've worked really hard with not only the foster parents in North Carolina, but all of those folks that work within the system there in order to develop a strong association that can best represent all the families who care for kids within the child protection system, at least. Mm-hmm. And knowing your heart, I know you want the best for every child, whatever system they might be in. And if they're not, that they still get the services that they need. So foster parent associations, as you know, is also very dear to my heart. And the supports that associations can give to foster parents. I know for us, as we kind of grew as foster parents over the 27 years that we were fostering, we sort of fostered kids in the age group of our children as they joined our family through adoption. And usually tried to keep our kids older, but not necessarily did that happen all the time for sure. And so we kind of progressed in the age group of kids that we invited into our home, and asked to join our family. Starting out with the little ones and wound up with the big ones. And when I say big ones, I mean, 6'4", 240-pound boys that could smash me like a bug if they needed to or wanted to. And, these big gangly guys that were trying to grow into their bodies and their brains weren't there yet kind of thing. And what an adventure with each one of them because they were each so different. So I understand why you're enjoying, even though it's hard sometimes. But I know that we used our association, our local association, as well as our state association, to always make sure that we did monthly trainings at our local meetings, and certainly our state conference, multiple workshops for people to attend on the whole issue of parenting teenagers. What's it like to parent somebody else's teenager? Especially if they have totally different outlook on life than you do. They've not had any structure or parameters maybe put in place for them, and how they would fight that structure and try to show their independence. But we also would try to have workshops that would address how these are teenagers, and teenagers pretty much all do the same thing. It's just maybe the degree of what they do, or some of those outliers. But they're going to be kids. They're going to test themselves. They're going to test everybody around them. They're going to see how far they can go, without getting into too much trouble. All of that stuff. And we learned all the time about new ways, new techniques, new ideas. What worked and what didn't work, with particular kids and with particular personalities, or maybe with kids with particular diagnosis. And all of those opportunities that we got through our foster parent associations really helped us become much better at foster parenting. And I truly believe that. And because we learned not just from experts that have a lot of alphabet soup after their name, but we learn from tenured, wise foster parents how they managed it. How did they grow into being the skilled parents that they had become? And when times got really hard, how they got through that, right? And didn't necessarily blame themselves and feel guilty because they couldn't fix the kid. Could you talk a little bit about some of the feelings that go along with parenting, well, any child, but particularly the older ones who are very vocal and can be very verbal sometimes, and hurt your feelings and other people's feelings and just all those things? And what is it about you and how you handle that? And I guess now your husband as well, that enables you to keep going?
Well, I think that one of the things that I've learned through all of what I've been doing is that we can't, as foster parents, take things personally quite often. The kids really take a lot out on us. And so many times, even the young adults, they take a lot out on us as well. And a lot of times that's because they're trying to challenge you to see whether you're going to stick with them. So I have a couple of stories I can share. One of them that I love to share because I find it really humorous. I have a young man that lived with me. He had just moved in with me, really wanted to drive. And one of the other young men that lived with me was using one of my company cars. And he decided to take the keys in the middle of the night, midnight. He decided to take the keys and try to take off with this minivan. Well, at midnight, the alarm goes off on the minivan. My husband and I hear it, and the car drives off with the minivan alarm going off. So I immediately called the authorities. I had no idea who had taken the car, what had happened. I didn't know it was one of the boys in my house. I didn't know anything about it. I just called the authorities. Found out that this young man, his name's Alex, decided to take the keys and try to take the car. So I called the police, and I'm standing on the front porch talking to the police, and here comes Alex walking up the street with his head hanging low. And I'm like, where's the van? He says, it's down the street. I couldn't get the alarm to turn off. he ended up opening up the van doors, and the van doors were broken, and he couldn't figure out how to get the van doors back closed. And so he just was so frustrated because the doors were open, the alarm was going off. He just abandoned the sucker. And he's like, okay, so when do I need to pack, Miss Maurita? And I'm like, you don't need to pack. He's like, okay, well, the police going to take me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to press charges. I said, but if you do it again, I will press charges and we'll have to talk further. But that's one of the biggest things I think that I've had to learn is to not immediately, a lot of times as foster parents, when you're dealing with these types of challenges, we're very quick to give up on the kids because we see that as a behavior problem. But honestly, the more you stick with them and the more you're willing to allow them to make their mistakes, the more love you get from them. It's been hard. I have one who's got a lot of disabilities, and his are really challenging. And in fact, I recently had to put him in quarantine because he was in a respite program and was exposed to COVID. So I had to quarantine him in his room. Well, he decided to jump out the window the first day he was in quarantine. So, it's just trying to learn what works for each one of the kids and not taking things personally, I think, are the two biggest things that you have to do. I recently had to talk to my husband about it. We have one young man that's just very, very, he's very angry. He's a very angry young man that lives with us right now and can be very challenging. And my husband has been a little bit challenged by that lately. And I explained to him that a lot of times when these kids are pushing back on us like they do and taking their anger out on us, it's because they're feeling the love that we have for them. And they don't like it because they don't know how to respond to it because they're not used to it, or they don't feel like they're worthy of it. And so you just have to continue to connect with them and not take things personally. I keep saying that, don't take things personally, but that's probably one of the biggest things that I've had to do is not take things personally from the kids.
I agree, because words do hurt. I say sticks and stones, but words don't hurt. No, they do.
Sure do.
As a mature adult with a lot of experience, sometimes the words still can hurt. And I know I would feel that, and then I'd feel like guilty because I knew better, but I let it hurt me anyway. But I think, your words of not giving up, of, not overreacting in the moment, taking the assumption that, okay, I'm out of here because like the first young man you described did because he did something wrong. And maybe that's the experience they had before. I always try to look back at how many other places does these kids live before they came. How frequently were those moves? Were they ever any place long enough to even start to develop a feeling of trust and to approach connection and love with their caregiver, right? And we'd often find that they'd had many, many places they lived before us, and not just in the foster care system, but oftentimes before that, they were never in any one place for very long. And it might have been multiple family members that they moved around, everyone because the parent wasn't able to meet their needs, so the family tried. And then it was the system, and they learned very quickly. Well, I can just push the whatever button and they're good at identifying that. I found that too. They find your weak spot, and I'll get out of here. And then I don't have to worry about getting connected. I don't have to worry about starting to actually care about these people, right? I don't have to learn to love them and get to love them, and then they tell me to go away and totally break my heart again. I'm not going to let anybody do that to me ever again. Yeah. And that seemed to be, once I learned that, and I'm German, so I'm kind of hard-headed, so it took me a while to learn that. But once I did, then I would have those conversations with those kids where they do something stupid, right? So, do you think this is going to make me kick you out? Aren't you? No. Well, why not? Because I love you. I care about you. I want you to have a good life. If everyone keeps kicking you out, how are you going to learn how to do that? How are you going to learn to control what you're feeling and what you're doing? Who are you going to go to that you can trust when you screw up and you didn't even do it on purpose? You just did it because you made a bad decision, right? Who are you going to go to help you figure out why in the heck did I make that decision? Why did I actually do that? I knew better if I had just thought it through. You have to have somebody like that in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to do that. Those people are for you. I don't care where you live. When you're 30 or 40 and you need it, then we'll have our phone number. We're always going to care about you. And, you know, some of the kids, just talking to one the other day, she's 30, she'll be 36 in September. 3 children. And, you know, she'll still call. Usually just call and tell them how they're doing and, you know, that sort of thing. But this was one of those calls where, Mom, I made a really bad decision. It was based on a fella, right? That a new guy in her life. I don't know why I did it. I knew he had a history. But I fell in love with him. I didn't let my mind think through the consequences that could happen to my girls. Mm. I need help. I need to figure out, what do I do now? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? So, she had somebody, right? She trusts. And she knew I'm going to go off the deep end and yell and fuss at her for being stupid. But that I was going to listen to her and give her as the sound advice or information that I could, because she lives in another town now, about what to do in those situations like that. And, you know, as we ended the call, she said, I don't know why I didn't call you before. Why didn't I call you when I was having these mixed up feelings? I said, I don't know. And she said, well, I don't know either, because I know you always try to help when I call. So I think a big part of what people who care for teenagers can do for them is not just while they're there, it's to help them understand that they're going to be there for them. Mm-hmm. Not to live with them for 40 years, but to help them when they really need help, when they've done their best job to struggle through something, right? To grow up, to make good decisions, to learn from their bad decisions. And they can feel confident about what tomorrow might bring. I think that's just so huge. And
no, I think that one of the, sorry, not to interrupt, but one of the things that I think is really important in regard to what you're talking about is these kids need a forever family too. And quite often that doesn't look like adoption for these kids. And we can't take it personally. That sometimes because these kids have a loyalty, these young adults have a loyalty to their family upbringing, whether it was right or whether it was wrong, whether it was good or whether it was bad, they have a sense of loyalty to that. For an example, I have a young man who lives with me currently. When he was 12 years old, both of his parents died. And so all of his siblings went into foster care. And his brothers and sisters decided to get adopted, but he did not. And because of that, when he turned 18, they basically said, okay, you didn't want to be adopted, so now you got to figure it out on your own. And that's not right. As a foster family, you should still be able to stick by kids when they turn 18 and know that, I know here in North Carolina, they've put a lot into place to continue to support the young adults when they turn 18. And there's a lot of work that's being done nationally to help these young adults to achieve success. We have 27,000 kids a year that are put on the street from foster care. And we need to continue to support them even when they turn 18. I know I wasn't ready when I turned 18. I know that I wasn't even close to being ready. But they need forever families. I've got one that's, I'm getting ready to move to Texas, from North Carolina to Texas at the end of June. And while that's hard, it's really heartbreaking to have her go to Texas. I'm very, very proud of her and excited. She's found a really great job in Dallas and just moving and shaking. And, you know, she's not my daughter. She's not my birth daughter, but she is my daughter. And I'm going to support her until I've got kids in their 30s that I still support. And I think that that's extremely important, what you're talking about, Irene. Whether you adopt them or whether you don't, they're adopted in our hearts.
Right. Well, it's interesting. The weddings we've helped put on, the brides, my husband has walked down the aisle. The mother's candles that I've lit for mamas who weren't there. What were those kids going to do if they hadn't had foster parents who were committed to them after they were out of the system?
Yeah.
I mean, I always think about that, and how do you move forward when you don't have people to do those very basic things that are the milestones in your life, like getting married, having your first child, be there to help, to hold, to love and the ooh and ah on the baby. I mean, it's like, and to be grandma, if that's what you need to be. And got a lot of times, I'm grandma to a lot of kids. I haven't seen in many, many years because I moved all over the country. But they needed the grandma.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
These babies needed a grandma and a grandpa. And my grandkids are aunts and uncles, so it's just amazing the network that these young people who are now in their 30s and 40s have put together in order to be family. That has nothing to do with blood, but everything to do with connection and hope.
Yep, that very much so.
And an outlook that we could help plant in these kids that there's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
And tomorrow can be better. It's just up to us to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, I think it's challenging with these kids. I'm thrilled that, many states have adopted at least kids can stay in care if they choose to until 21. Some are looking at 23 now. And that's fair, and that should be happening. Not all states have done it, for sure. At last I looked, it was only like maybe half the states that actually implemented that yet. I live in Texas, and we implemented it really early on, and it was tough the first few years because the kids didn't believe it, that they were going to be able to stay in care and that they'd be treated more as adults, right? In a more normalized environment than they'd experienced in traditional foster care. And so it took probably 3 years of kids, of the few who would accept the program, to actually experience it and have good experiences. And then that could be spread around so that more and more were saying, well, I'm going to opt for that one because, I don't want to really be on the street. I don't know what I'm going to find if I go find anybody in my birth family if they didn't know who they were, which I think is just shame if they don't. Because that's kind of one of my other big things is that when your family, just because the rights were terminated, if that was the situation, and you didn't find another permanent solution that provided you the family, those are still your family, right? I mean, they didn't all drop off the earth. They're still out there functioning in some way. Right?
Hopefully.
And kids have a right to that knowledge, that information. And sometimes they can go back and make something work, and other times they go back and try and it doesn't work. And then they kind of have to dig them up out and pull them back up by the bootstraps again and say, look, you made it through the first time, you're going to make it through this time too. We're here to help you make it through. And so the value of what you and your family are doing and others across the country that are in these situations as they become young adults and need to leave the foster care system are really doing God's work, I think. And I had one foster parent tell me the other day, she said, I love the babies. They didn't talk back to me, they hugged and kissed me. They could hear less what was going on, and just got loved all the time. And it was just wonderful. And then all of a sudden, you know, my kids grew up and then were teenagers, and she said, they didn't like me. They yelled at me and they cussed at me and they called me an MFR and everything else, you know, in the world. And I thought, why do that? Why do I want to put my, you know, why? And she said, we've been working with teenagers now for quite a few years, and she said, yeah, I wouldn't give it up for anything anymore, because I love a good conversation, she said, and I love somebody I can talk to and say, you know, hey, here's how the cow really ate the cabbage, and they can understand some of that, and they're learning to process those more adult ways of thinking. And that's what I showed her too. I said, you know, I agree with you, because it's some of those things where you can kind of see the light bulbs go off with them sometime. And you probably do that too, you know, just like, oh, yeah, you know, like, well, geez, okay, yeah, kind of thing. The other thing that we always use, and you have a wonderful smile, and you're always happy every time ever interacted with you. You're happy and smiling, but is, you know, just a humor and laughter and happiness and helping people find their joy. And
Amen.
I think I shared last week actually on our episode about that I actually had some kids tell me, because I always talked about, you know, you have such a hard time being happy. Well, no, you're not making me happy, or whatever it is isn't making me happy. And I said, well, here's the deal. I don't think anybody can find happiness if they haven't found joy within themselves. And so, do you think you have any joy? No. Nobody's even talking about that. So let's start talking about it. Well, how about by being kind to another human being? Oh, that's joy? Well, yeah, because it sure makes that other guy happy, right? And because you were able to make somebody else happy, that should make you feel fulfilled as well. Look at the power within you. Just look at the power you have within you that you don't even know you have.
Yeah.
Start working on this joy thing, and it's pretty amazing, you know, that when you start looking at that, and then you get these kids that are grumpy all the time, or you know, all the time, or why'd you do that? You know, they don't want to talk. Let's start walking around the house. They have a smile on their face. I mean, you know, and you know you're starting to get through. So that's what foster families can do for these young people, is to teach them more about not just, you know, how you wash your clothes appropriately so you don't have everything turn red, and how you buy groceries on a small amount of money that's nutritious, and those kind of things that we seem to spend our time on a lot of times. But it's those other things that really lead to joy and happiness and fulfillment. And all that leads to well-being, which is exactly what we have to try to do for every kid. So I'm looking at the time, and our time is about up, and I talk too much, I know. So I want you to, all your thoughts that you wanted to say that give you an opportunity to say, now is the time.
Oh, you're funny. That's so cute. A lot of my thoughts that I've had to say. Oh, it's been good. I really enjoy having the time to share with everybody and just, you know, encourage families to stick by young adults. I think is a huge part of what I want to share today. And just the importance of that, and being able to build community around you that will help to support you through it as well. I think that that's another aspect that we really didn't talk about that is important, is you've got to have your people that are sounding boards for you. One of the stories is, as Irene was talking, one of the things I got to thinking about is I always find it encouraging. You know, a lot of times we sit there as parents and we're telling our kids, we're giving them advice and things like that, and it goes in one ear and out the other ear. But then you hear the kids talking to each other, and you'll hear something that you said that they'll say to one another. And it's those moments that I celebrate. I may not celebrate in the moment because they don't have a tendency sometimes to listen to better or whatever, like we talked about, just typical teenage stuff. But they're listening. They're always listening to us, and they know who really cares about them. But it's hard for them. It's a really hard thing for them to receive. Another story that I got to thinking about as Irene was talking was, I have a young man. He is now 29 years old, and he was in foster care since he was 3 and never adopted by a family. And we've talked about adopting him as an adult and welcoming. He is part of our family. Actually started to call himself McCorkle rather than his given name. But it's the kids. I love hearing them call me mom. Some of them never call me mom, and I don't care. But one of them I had call me mom on Christmas Day, and I about lost it. And that was the first time that he called me mom. But it's special. These young adults are special. These young adults they have a future, and we have to believe in that future before they can believe in it for themselves quite often. And we have to continue to encourage them in any and every way that we can. And I just continue to encourage you as foster parents, you as caretakers, that it's worth it. It's worth it.
Thank you so much for being our guest today.
I enjoyed it.
Hopefully, maybe next year, we can have you back on again, and you can tell us a little bit more, or we can even talk about a different topic.
I'd love to have one of my adults to join us, maybe.
We could sure do that. That would be awesome. So I'm going to write that one down, and then as we're planning our schedule for 2021, we'll make sure that we include that. Because we always hear one side of the story. So I think that would be really, really good in order to have some one or two of the young people who you work with that recognizes, that there is a difference, and even one that maybe isn't yet. I mean, that's real life, right? Because they're not everyone always a success story. Most of them are in many ways. And I guess the other thing about, foster parenting, children of any age, you plant millions of seeds on a regular basis with every child you work with, and most often you never see them sprout, much less how all that plant grows and how great those kids become and what they are as adults. And the kids in foster care get a really raw deal with it. People think about foster kids and, unproductive, and will always be unproductive, and those awful things, when we know that's not true. And, my kids are living proof of it. I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that I know personally who are living proof of being very successful, maybe not being wealthy, but boy, do they know how to work, and they know how to take care of their family, right? Yeah. And that one of the really important things are, and how to actually care about other people. So thank you again, Maurita, and I'll look forward to next year with this one. And thanks to everybody who joined us today. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye. Thank you.